Pump No Kool-Aid Sadiq.
Never.
And also sitting here with my niece, Miss Malia. She actually reached out to me about a week or so ago. Says, Tia, that's what she calls me. Tia, I want to come on your show. And I said, oh really? What you want to talk about? She goes, I don't know. I just want to come on the show. So here she is.
Wait, isn't she the little girl that was booing us?
No.
Wasn't she the one booing us? Okay.
No. So anyway, Malia is going to join us for this show. And I thought it'd be interesting or nice, rather, to cater it to the young people, per se, if you will. That way she can, she's very articulate. Again, for you guys coming on, this is my niece, Malia. She is 12, about to be 13 in a couple of months. Very, very astute young lady. She is in the STEM program she had to get into. It wasn't something that was given to her. Average student, does very well, so she can very much hold her own on this conversation. So as I said, we're going to be catering the conversation to young people and everybody in general. But hello to those on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. There's so many podcasts to name, so I'll just say hello to you all. And of course to you on YouTube. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel. Malia, she watches the YouTube videos and she says, hello, Tia.
Yes.
Yes, she says hello. So anyway, in Facebook, the Ride or Die live audience, the other part of the conversation. You guys, we could not do this show without you, so I just want to always make that clear, and I promise to get every last one of your comments. And if you are watching this on a watch party, for whatever reason, I can't see the comments on that side, so come on to my page. I'm public, and comment there. And so anyway, as always, on the Demetra K Show, it is the premise to promote Black love, knowledge, and understanding of all the things that go on in the Black community to make us an even better people.
Yeah.
Also, a big thank you to Donovan for all that he does behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, you name it, Donovan does it all. Also to Marcus Guyton, who pulls a lot of bells and whistles behind the scenes as well. And so anyway, I want to get into it. So the topic is a new breed of Black leaders, preparing a new breed of Black leaders. So what does that mean? Well, obviously, as you guys know, this will be the last show.
What?
Of the decade.
We've been canceled? What? Nobody told me.
Right. You're fired. No, I'm just kidding. This is the last show of the decade because, was it Wednesday? It'll be January 1st,
Absolutely.
2020. That's huge. If you really think about it, this is like we're going to another decade, right? And so, obviously, for Malia, you were there. You're born in 2007. Okay.
Oh, so Lord, I'm getting old.
You're going into a third decade, if you will, right?
I guess so.
Donovan and I are going into how many?
Second decade.
We're going into a lot of decades, so that's huge. We just getting ready to end a decade and going into a new decade, and so I just thought we need to figure out how to move the ball forward for Black people in the new decade 2020, because I don't know exactly how much we've done. I say we didn't do anything when I say we, Black people, in the last decade, but we sure could do a whole lot more. And so I thought one of the ways we can do that is to prepare a new breed of Black leaders. And that new breed is sitting right next to me. As I said, this is my niece, Malia. She is very interested in learning about who she is. And, as a Black child, my daughter spends quite a bit of time talking to her about things that are going on with Black people, as does her parents.
Sure, absolutely.
But I'm considered the radical auntie, if you will. And so
I wonder why.
I'm considered the radical auntie. I don't hold back when I'm talking to young people. Of course, I try to be careful what I say, but I do my best to educate them and to teach them knowledge of self. And so I thought that she should come on here. One, because she wanted to. Second is because anytime someone young is expressing,
interested, right?
And are interested in learning about something, especially as who they are, I think we as Black people should do our very best to
encourage it.
Yes, and first of all, encourage it, but impart wisdom and knowledge on them, because guess what? they are going to be the new breed, the new school, if you will, of black leaders. Now, of course, leader is open to interpretation, but when I'm speaking of leaders, I'm talking about people who are going to help us move the conversation, help us move where we are economically, who we are as far as knowledge of self, everything black people need. I'm talking in those terms. And so what we also going to need is for the generation before me and Donovan, our generation, to get on board with that and helping them do that, because it's going to be the young people that are going to take us to the next level. And I will say this too, especially about, what is your generation? Indigo generation?
I think Gen Y or Gen Z, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Gen Z? You think it?
Gen Y.
Gen Y? Or well, they Gen somebody,
Yeah.
okay? So they're the next generation, and so they're very advanced, if you will. They're far more advanced than we are, I would say, and so it is important that we teach them. Especially in technology, because you could probably do all this stuff. I couldn't tell you how to do none of it.
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you figure it out. But anyway, she's very, apt in science, math. What is the other thing?
Humanities, language arts, English.
All of that. So we need to give them, so they'll have the educational skills, if you will, but we need them to have the knowledge of self and the knowledge of what we are dealing with as black people, because I tend to see that, especially with our children, they're not taught that other side of who we are and what we're dealing with. They're shielded from that a lot.
Especially at school, because it's not very comfortable to talk about at school, so it's a lot better to do it, when people can,
right,
understand.
Right.
People who look like them, feel like them, experience the same way.
Right.
What grade are you in?
I'm in 7th grade.
You're in the 7th grade.
Speak up so they can hear you too. Yeah. So she's in the 7th grade, and as hey Jonelle, so as she said at school, and it's not just for her generation, but it was that way for us too. It's not something that you're supposed to talk about a lot as far as race. We're taught, our generation too, they're taught what? Inclusion, right? Yeah. It's about everybody, which is fine.
But sometimes people still think that their inclusion isn't inclusion. It's like separation in different areas. Like race, gender, it can be anything. And people like to call that inclusion. And that doesn't necessarily count.
So do you feel included a lot as a black girl? Do you feel included at school with different programs and even some of the in some of your classrooms? Do you feel included as a black girl, or is it just like a?
It's kind of like a community. Like everyone, has a voice. Everyone gets to like put in votes or just like participate in all the activities. It's not like, oh, you can go do that over there, and then you guys can go do that over there.
So do they talk about things specifically for you as a black child at school?
Well, not often. What? I mean, last year we learned about we read the Watsons Go to Birmingham. It was pretty much as close to getting to race as we do.
So you never heard about Malcolm X?
I've heard of him.
You've heard about Malcolm X at school?
Yeah, she heard it from you.
No, I'm not talking about from me. I'm talking about at school.
My family and I went to the Broad Museum, I think.
But that was your family.
What about the school?
We've heard of it, but we haven't got into the subject.
Why is that?
Because I guess Martin Luther King is more popular than Malcolm X is.
Well, what do you know about Martin Luther King? Just in general.
I know that he was a peaceful movement or mover of segregation and desegregation.
Okay. So again, everybody, this is my niece Malia, 12 years old, 7th grade, and she wanted to come on the show, and so I said, why not? You guys can hear she can hold her own. She's very knowledgeable, so I wanted to bring her on, and I'll try to bring her on more often just to give her a feel of what it's like, because she's interested by the studio and all of that, and I want her to start learning more, not that she doesn't already know, but more about who she is, because guess what? When we teach the young people, they go teach other people.
Right.
And that's where it's going to start.
But I want people to know this right now. She's going to take my idea. Anything that I see.
That's not true.
I want a piece. I want a cut. You just can't take my intellectual property and just use it for yourself.
Your intellects are yours.
Yeah,
They
okay.
aren't always
All
the
right.
best.
Okay, I just want to make sure, She gonna go out there and be that, like a social media, what do they call you
They
kids?
influencer.
Influencer, yeah.
Influencer,
Take them
yes.
out. Because look, she was asking me quick, what's that, the green screen? Where do you get that from? How do you do it? Okay, I'm watching.
Right, and so,
Smart girl.
Yeah,
Smart
so
girl.
just really moving into the new millennium. I keep saying the new millennium. Why do I keep? Because I guess it's the new decade. Going into
Yeah,
the new
new
decade,
decade.
I want to ask you guys that are on here, and you guys too, what are some of the things we need to do? Like, because we talk about it, but what are some of the things we really need to start doing in order to move the ball forward for Black people? So what do I mean by that? We know economically we are about to be out of wealth, as we always talk about, in less than 12 or less than 13 years.
13 years.
Black people, the wealth of Black people is going to be zero right
Zero.
now. It is on average $15,000 per, or $15,000 in a Black household on wealth, if you want to call that wealth. But in 12 years, coming the new decade, we're going to have zero Black wealth.
Hey, real quick, one
Sure.
thing I found out, when they say family, the statistic that the government is using is a father and a mother and kids.
Correct.
Now, if 70% of Black women are not married and they're heading their household, guess what? They're not included in that survey. So, if 70% of Black women are not married, they are probably below that poverty line.
Right. So no, of course. So
Right.
that and so when you say average, it doesn't mean everybody.
Right.
It just means on an average, right? But we probably know a whole host of people who don't have $15,000 just sitting there, in a disposable income, if you will. And so we know that we're going to be out of wealth in 12 years. So what do we need to do to fix that? There's just a whole host of issues. On the political scene, Black people, our needs are not even being talked about anymore. We know that there's this thing called reparations that we've been trying to get. Of course, it's come to the forefront lately. It's been re-energized, if you will. Do you know what reparations are?
I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. So she's heard of reparations, and so she's 12. But there's a lot of people who are 50, 60, 70
That don't know what
that
it is.
have no idea, and then they might have heard of reparations, but they don't know what that means. And so
Sure.
reparations is to right a wrong.
No, it's a financial
Right. Let's get into
incentive.
that.
Yeah.
So right and wrong by a way of finances. So to pay a debt that was done in regards to a wrong that was done.
Kind of like Harvey Weinstein paying the
Correct.
victims $25 million.
Yeah, that's like punitive.
Yeah, that's punitive, right.
Right, so punitive. So reparations is important to Black people and to Black wealth because it will shrink the wealth gap. So what is the wealth gap? So as we talked about, a Black household on average have $15,000 in wealth, if you will, but white households have $170,000
on average.
That just shows the gap right there.
There's the gap. There's the gap. Exactly. Smart girl. There's the gap. And so with an infusion of cash via reparations, that would help us close the wealth gap, because it is said at the rate we're going now, it's going to take us 232 years to catch up to that of white households' wealth. Are you going to be here for 230 more years?
No.
No, that's not true. She's working on, what are you working on, the transporter thing to go to the future? A time machine?
No.
Okay, all right.
We don't know if no one really knows if it's possible yet. I mean,
See? Genius. Genius.
I never said we're working on it. It could be possible. We don't know yet.
There you go.
So again, you guys, this is Malia, and if you're in the watch parties, please come on this side to comment, because I want to know from you guys, what can we do in the new decade to move the ball forward for Black people? In 10 years, my niece will be 22 years old, and so she'll be out of college, getting, if she goes, but, her parents will have no other way, so she's going, so she'll be out of college, working on her master's at that point, but...
Representing the 41st District.
Or whatever, but she is going to be considered, and, she doesn't need to wait 10 years to be a leader. She can be that now because
Absolutely.
she goes to school with not a lot, but a lot Black students that she can be an influence to and say, hey, do you know who you are? Do you know the issues that are going to affect you? They won't affect you like directly now because you're a child, but in less than 10 years, you're going to feel the effects of us as black people not getting our stuff together. So what are those effects? When she graduates college, like a lot of us, there's not going to be any jobs there. So wouldn't it be nice if someone like her, when she graduated college and she wants to open up her own business, because that's how her parents talked to her about opening her own business opposed to going to get a job. And wouldn't it be nice that when she opened up her business, what kind of business you want to open?
I kind of want to study either psychology or genetics.
So psychology or genetics. So whatever business that may be, she wants to open up that business. Wouldn't it be nice for her to have a market to cater to?
She does have a market. It's called the United States Military and Endless Wars.
No, we're talking
psychology.
about
So she's going to psychology. There's plenty.
Right. But I'm saying, wouldn't it be nice if she had her own people to come to her? Because, we need psychologists in the black community.
Absolutely.
Because it's important. And a lot of times, I've never seen a psychologist. I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
But it's important to go. See,
sure.
She knows I'm crazy. But it's important for us to go see people who are reflective of us.
Right.
I'm sitting down with a black woman or a black man who can understand that I'm probably a little bit cuckoo.
Right, without having to explain to you all the detailed terms.
A little,
right.
a lot. She says a little cuckoo, but it would be nice to explain to a black psychologist what's going on with me, and they understand that some of the things that's going on with me is not necessarily all my fault. Well, you're a black woman, first of all, in a white society that's ran by white supremacists, so that's a little bit of your problem. But it'd be nice to sit down. So the point that I'm making is, we need to have our stuff somewhat together so that her generation won't have to go through the same things that we've gone through and the same things our parents have gone through.
Right.
So what do we need to do?
Right. Let me clarify real quick. When we say white supremacy, we don't specifically mean a color. It is a state of being, because you could be black and be working for white supremacy.
Right.
So I want to just clarify that for everybody, because I got a lot of kickback on that.
That would basically mean
Sure.
they get a little bit more of the cut than we do, or a lot more of the cut than we do.
A
lot more. Because I've learned that for every, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if for every white man's dollar, the black woman gets about 67 cents around that.
Less than that if you're a black woman, yeah. But on average, a woman gets about 70%.
Malia, are you comparing that from a white woman or a white man compared to a black woman? Because you got to get the numbers right.
Because
that's a man. So let's say the white man's getting $1. You're saying that the black woman gets 67 cents of that dollar compared to his dollar.
Less than that.
67 cents less. Okay, great.
Oh, 67,
Now, if it was a white woman, does a white woman get paid more than a black woman in comparison?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the things we need to try to figure out, how to make sure that their generation is not continuing on the same struggle train
that you all have probably had.
Yeah.
I take offense to that. I take offense to that. I'm struggling. Okay, all right.
Maybe a little.
Okay.
See, Donovan's on that individual thing,
Right,
right? I'm
right.
talking about collectively, so we don't struggle, because a white child in 10 years, they're going to have everything set up for them. It's a fact.
It's a fact.
They're not going to leave college burdened with, oh my God,
am I going to make it?
Right.
Well, what's sad is you got these wealthy, rich white kids that parents are taking advantage and taking scholarships and federal money from the kids that actually need it.
Right.
So, all those stories.
I'm going to get you guys' comments. So what do we do? What do we do to fix that?
Give up.
Give up?
Give up.
No.
Really? No?
No.
Well, let me ask you, just on your knowledge alone, what would you say that we do to fix what is to come in, let's say, 10 years for you?
I say fight. I'm not talking like fist to fist fight. I'm talking like fight for your rights, because you know the rights you have. If you know those, then everything will fall in place immediately. But it's not going to be easy. You have to fight for it. You can't just be, if I work for it and be a little bit lazy, it's just going to happen. That's not how it works. You got to go for it.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Like I said, that's a great answer. I know my rights. A lot of people know their rights. You can know your rights all you want, and if they just prevent you from doing what it is you need to do to express those rights, how do we do that?
Well, if they set those rules, they have to follow those rules, and they have to make sure everyone else gets the same treatment for those.
Okay, so good example. You got President Trump up there. He says, I will not deal with the subpoena. I will not provide witnesses. I will not listen to what the law says and what these people say. What do we do?
Well, you're the president, so you should be enforcing those rules. 2,
Okay.
I think if it's a big problem, you should deal with it. You're president.
Right, but he's not following the law. He's not following the rules. So what do?
You set those laws, you do those laws.
He's not doing it. So what do?
You force him to.
How?
I'm pretty sure the House has more power than him, definitely. And I'm pretty sure the Senate has more power than the president. So
And together they make what?
the Congress, I believe. So
And yet he's not following what they're telling him to do by the law. So what do you do?
why is he even here in the first place?
Because he's the president.
That is the question. So I'm going to
There you
get to you guys' comments right now. Malia's like, you're not going to trip me up,
right,
boo.
right.
That's right. You get them.
Right.
So
Good
Janelle
answer.
says, peace to everyone.
Yes, hello.
And then Taysom,
Welcome.
who is this beautiful princess. That's my niece, Malia. And Janelle says, our future generations must be raised on reality, the truth, self-awareness. If they don't embody reality, they will embody lies, which only leads them to illusion. Our children, let's see.
Have the capacity to master all that they undertake.
The truth.
The truth is most important to our future generations and readers and leaders. Our readers are leaders.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about. This next generation, we have to, as you guys follow the Bible, what does it say about children? Raise them up.
As they should go.
Raise them up when they are young. Teacher had it in my mind. I said when they're old, they will not depart from that. And so that's what we need to do, is to instill that stuff in them young, so that way when they're older, it'll just, roll off.
Living proof right here.
Yeah,
There you go.
and believe it or not, the things that your parents teach you, you actually do. Even if you say, "Oh, I hate that my dad did that," you're actually going to end up doing that later on in life.
Maybe. And Jonelle says, we move the ball by doing exactly what is being stated. We prepare our children now with the truth and reality of where we are, what is needed from them, and preparing them for their present state as well. See, this is where I lose my place. As well as investing in them and giving them all the awareness and not limiting their ability to truly be thinkers and blind them with falsehoods. They must have the enlightenment and abilities given to them, allow them to do for self and work their own dreams, ideas. We must establish our own by all righteous means. And absolutely. And so to that point, when they are establishing their own ideas and dreams, we need to be there for them and make sure we help them make that a reality. Because a lot of times you hear it takes a village to do what?
To raise a child.
To raise a child. So that's not just, don't do that, don't do this, I'm going to whoop your butt. That's being the whole enchilada, if you will, making sure that, as I said, in 10 years when she gets ready to open her business, that there's this backing, there's this community, the village is there to actually help them realize these dreams. Because we traditionally, for whatever reason, and Carter G. Woodson talked about this in A Miseducation of the Negro, we taught our children to go off and get these big time degrees, which is fine, with these psychologists and things like that, but we haven't taught them to come back and do the things we need, like a baker or a laundress or whatever, because we still need those things. So, but when they come back, there has to be this community of people to say,
For them to come back too.
I need your services. Like, I always talk about a lot of the older Hollywood actors and actresses. Clarence Muse, you guys know who he was? He was the older guy in Car Wash.
Right.
A lot of people don't know he studied to become I think it was a doctor or a lawyer or something. He had a lot of degrees, but the problem with him was black people couldn't afford his services. And white people were not going to pay him to represent them legally and all of that. So he ended up going into acting. And he did a lot of the step and fetch it type of roles and the shines and all that kind of stuff. And so as he got older, he talked about it. He said, it wasn't my original plan to be an actor and to do those things, the roles of the butlers and stuff. He says, but I was in a pickle because I didn't have the village, if you will, to support me in my dreams to make sure that I flourish. And so this is how I ended up here. So we got to make sure that we're able to establish that. And moving on. And Jerry Green says, love the hair. What's happening? He also saying, Jerry, I always suggest to parents when I advocate for the students to seek a black therapist. Absolutely, because they're going to understand them as a black child. And Ricky says, hey, D and Donovan. Peace, Malia. What's up, Ricky? Hey, Donovan says, hey, y'all, checking in. What's new today? Everything. And James says, Donovan, great explanation on white supremacy, and then a segue to Trump. It trickles down to Black Congress or Congressional Black Congress, always laying down and won't challenge and have now the next generation as people of color, right?
Thank you. Yes,
people of color in quotation. Have you ever heard that term before? People of color.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a person of color?
Yes.
What does that mean to you as far as when you hear person of color, people of color?
Well, the first thing I think of is Jim Crow laws, because that was what we were considered back then. The second thing I think of is, well, myself, I guess, because that's who I am, I guess.
Right. And so that's what, to James's point, that's what whoever they are, have deduced us down to people of color. Now, are we technically people of color?
Absolutely.
That's what people just assume we are.
Yeah.
No, we are. I look at you, I see a young, beautiful black girl.
It's also the new, if you will, if you guys correct me if I'm wrong, it's also the new version of minorities. Do you know what it is to be a minority? Yeah. So what does it mean to be a minority in relation to a majority?
Well, I know minor is less than
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Basic math, yeah.
So when you're a minority, that means you're in the few, right? And so
which is kind of backwards because there are more quote minorities than there are white people.
It's a play on words, if you will. If you keep calling yourself what, you believe what. You believe that about yourself. And so the technical term for us has been minorities. Minorities meaning women, the gay and lesbian
community,
black people,
brown,
Hispanic.
Asian.
So there's this conglomerate of minorities, and to Donovan's point, it actually ends up being the majority. And so people have gotten away from that, and so as black people, when we are lumped into the term of minority or people of color, our stuff gets lost in the sauce. We become this whole melting pot, if you will, of problems and issues and things. And everyone
and no agenda.
Yes, and so everyone else's agenda, if you will, gets met, but black people's keep getting pushed down because, we did something for minorities.
Right.
But did you do something for black people? And so that's why they tell us as black people to separate yourself from the whole people of color thing or minority because our things never get addressed. Not addressed or taken care of at all. So good point.
I just want to say something. In school, like I said, we've been studying genetics. I just wanted to add this in. I'm not sure this relates to what we're talking about.
Go ahead.
But the human race is 99.9% the same. The only thing different is our skin color, hair color, height, eye color, pretty much everything what you look like. You're all the same. You're all the same template, I guess.
Yes, we all know that.
Separating you is how you look.
Correct. So what is race? You know what a social construct is? Have you heard that term before?
You should have. Your cousin Deanna talks about it all the time.
So what does that mean to you?
Well, social construct to me, construct. Social means to, I guess, socialize or be sociable, talk to other people, get to know them. And construct to me means to build. So I guess it means to build socially. In other words,
right?
So that is another way of looking at social. Social as far as a socialize, but social is like a derivative of society. So it's a society-driven thing, and so when we say social construct, it means something that society, whoever the society is, has deemed to be true. But to your point, you're absolutely right. Genetically speaking. Kind of, sort of. Till you said, what was it, 99.9? 99.9. It's probably a little bit more room in there than that, but we are pretty much the same if we're thinking about an anatomy kind of thing. But social construct, a race has become a social construct because as you should study, Dr. Claude Anderson says it was something that was created by white supremacy to I guess make the difference of people, and it really came out of capitalism to create this us and them type of society. So that's where a race comes from. But yeah, very good explanation. And so let's see here. And Nathan, he tagged somebody. So anyway, that's one of the things that we really need to do is to move the ball forward. And I always say this: we need to educate our ourselves and then educate our people, because a lot of times we try to put this cape on and go out there and save the whole planet. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to save the world. I'm going to tell everybody about this, that, and the other. Oh, great. What about your own house? Well, because, you know, this is how you can tell that if a person is about the business, right? Like you have all these people who are talking about black empowerment, this, that, and the other, woo, woo, woo. And then you talk to their children. And their children are like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What? What do you mean? You haven't even empowered your own kids? You haven't empowered the people next to you?
Well, that's because I don't want them to be, have all that stress on them at that age.
So are you just one of those leaders that are just out there for show? I mean, can the people who are very like elbow room to you, can they also talk the talk? Can they walk the walk? So that's where if we start at home and the people we know, then I think it'll just fix itself. You know what I mean?
Well, so you're saying like during the Birmingham, not riots, but the Birmingham movement. When Martin Luther King, when everybody got jailed, and he says, well, time to send the kids in to get them involved. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Well, I don't know necessarily about that. You send them in to do what?
Well, during that time, they sent them in to do the marching to see if these guys are going to put the hoses and the dogs on them. But
well, what did Malcolm X say about that?
That's something adults should be doing.
Well, not even the adults.
What did he say?
He said the men should be doing that.
We were all in jail. When there ain't no men left.
He took issue with
using children
and women and children. Yeah. He says that the women and children. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying what kind of man would send women and children to the front line to be brutalized the way these women and children were.
But what I'm saying,
men would do that,
right? But what I'm saying is, so you're saying we should, empower the children just as much as we try to go out there and speak the word.
Absolutely,
Okay.
And it's one thing to speak, but there's also this action involved. Now, as she said earlier, it's not necessarily about getting your dukes up. It's about going out there and moving the ball, taking action. You know what I mean? Like, okay, because it's one thing to talk about it, but what are we actually doing? You know? And so
talk the talk, you gotta walk the walk.
That's right. And Jonelle says, people of limitations, we are the essence from which all colors come from. I'm going to say see more now so I can see. Which all colors come from. I'm getting smart. None can produce us. We produce all. In truth, we are the majority. The lost in the miseducation and groomed to be far removed from the reality. We as black people must remove the European indoctrinations from our being and get back in tune with our own reality. Absolutely. And so that's another thing. We need to do is stop teaching our children that they're something they're not, because a lot of times as black people in a white supremacist ran society, we think that we need to teach our children how to be like them in order to be accepted instead of being like themselves. But the truth of the matter is they'll never be like them. Whoever them are, they'll never be like them. There's actually more power in teaching them to be like themselves, right? Because what'll happen is when they get to be adults, we'll have to spend a lot of time, or they'll spend a lot of time on doing the, as you said, the indoctrination process, the brainwashing process. And I'll give you guys a perfect example. I don't see him on here. I won't mention his name. But there's a very older gentleman who, I don't know if he's following me anymore. He said he was sick of my crap. Yesterday, but God love him. He's an older guy.
Al?
No, not, he's older than that. He's in his 70s.
Okay.
And so he just comes from the generation.
Generation fail.
I didn't say it, Donovan did.
Generation fail.
Generation fail. Moving so they can see your beautiful face.
Generation fail.
Yes. So he comes from the older generation of where they didn't have civil rights, if you will, what they called civil rights. They didn't have that, and so they got to drink water and eat and live amongst white people, if you will. So that was good enough for them.
Right. But let me ask you this, though. Was that such a bad thing to be separated?
Well, no, it wasn't. But they were sold that idea of you're nobody until white people accept you. Until you're able to move freely amongst white people, you're nobody. And so when they got that, they were able to go into white establishments and spend black dollars with people who didn't want them there anyway. And when they're able to do that, it was like,
okay,
we made it. And so let me finish. And so it's hard for that generation, as I see somebody said, to unlearn that thing.
Right.
And so when they see people like you and I and the younger generation come along with new ideas, it's like, oh, I'm sick of your crap. What kind of, he said, are you some sort of a radical? And I said, oh, yes, why, thank you.
Yes, that's what I said too. I'm the devil, you know?
So what were you going to say, Malia?
I was going to say that you were talking about how race and all that work. Okay, Birmingham Times, let's go back to that. If they brought us here, why are they trying to segregate us? You're pretty much the only reason why we're all here. You can't segregate us if you tried to bring us here. You brought us here, you deal with us.
And they're dealing with that. They're dealing with that.
Well, do you know why we were segregated? Because even when they brought us over here on the slave ships, we were always segregated, if you will. But why do you think they wanted to keep us segregated after slavery?
They wanted us to keep those ideas that we had, that whites were still supremacy.
Very good. Very good.
And then they wanted to stop the domination of the black person, because what happens is, what's the dominant gene? Now, you're a Afro-Latina, right? So what's the dominant gene? When I look at you, do I see Latina?
I guess so.
No, I actually don't. The first thing I see is your beautiful brown skin. And that's what they want to stop.
Right. So, absolutely, they want to keep the false idea of white supremacy prevalent, so we'll keep you separate. Which, as Donovan said, that wasn't a bad thing, to be amongst your own people who love you, and you can, do what you want to do in your own society, if you will. And so, let's see here, get these other comments. Selinga, I hope I said that right. It says unlearn and reteach. Yes. And so if we don't get them now when they're young, they'll be adults and they'll have to unlearn and reteach. And it's hard. As they say, you can't do what to a dog? An old dog?
You can't teach them new tricks.
Can't teach them new tricks. It's hard to do, and it's not necessarily their fault. Imagine being 75 years old and you've you've gone through life thinking that was the right thing, and then you hear these new ideas come, and it's like, it's just horrible for them.
And that's why
Patricia.
And that's why when you see on all these news articles and stuff where these old Confederates, that's what I call them, Confederates, they're like getting slammed on the sidewalk and stuff, because they will not, their world is totally different. Even though I got to accept homosexuality. Let's say you just don't like homosexuality, because back in the day they stayed in the closet. Now these people are out. It's hard for somebody just to say, oh, I'll accept it. No, it just can't be done. It can't be done.
Right. And Patricia says, be like themselves. Absolutely. That's what we need to be doing. And Selinga, you say, but who are they? Africans? Americans? I vaguely remember what I said when I said they.
They is white supremacy.
Oh, yeah. They is white supremacy. That's what I was talking about. Yes. And he said, or what? And then Jonelle says, this is why. Hold on a second. There we go. Why did it take me all that time to think about doing that? Go ahead, read it.
This is why separation is important. None can truly do for any if we can't do for self. I, self, Lord, and master. Master self first. We master ourselves first. Then we can truly deal correctly, being true to ourselves. Self first. Self-love is imperative to a nation's survival, and especially us as individuals as well. We wouldn't even been enslaved as long as if we was rooted in self-love. Haiti rebellion, for example, segregating for regulation of us.
Absolutely, and that was what you said. You said it.
She said it.
Exactly what it was is to regulate us. And then they didn't want to be amongst us anyway. They have their own ideas of black people.
Yeah. When the Civil War made it evident that way of lifestyle was going to be no more, you have a lot of white people in the South that still believe that the South is going to be redeemed by putting us back in chains.
Yes, absolutely. And if you guys don't know, there's more black people. Most black people are in the South.
Yes.
We've just started to migrate back there, if you will, for a whole host of reasons. And then James says 3 things for the young sister. Maybe he's going to type something. And then Patricia says hello. And Selinga says, no, I meant our kid. You say they should be themselves. Oh yes. Well, we should teach them to be themselves. So when I say that, we're saying African or African Americans. Well, first we need to teach them about them being African. So a lot of times, and I know this was true for me, but see, I had a very revolutionary parents, if you will. oftentimes in school, black people are taught what about black people?
You were slaves, and Martin Luther King came, and everything's good.
Yeah. We're taught about slavery. We're not taught about us in Africa,
right.
Kings and queens and all that. We're taught about,
our civilization started when we came here.
Right, but why do you think they took it all away from us?
They want us to forget who we are and just enjoy how super they are.
Right, and that way, when you rob a person of knowledge of self, you've robbed them of everything. Everything. If a person don't know who they are, it's a lost cause.
And then think about this: if you don't know you've done anything, you won't do anything.
Exactly. And so when I say that, Salinga, as far as teaching us who we are, we need to teach us ourselves, our children, about who we were and are as Africans. Because a lot of times it's down to the point if we are taught that we are nothing. Because a lot of people just taught how bad it was for black, and it was bad for black people in slavery. And even after slavery, we don't learn about all the inventions and things we've contributed to American society.
You know, one of the main things I hear from young people, especially back in our generation when we were young, they're holding me down. They. And then when I ask, well, who's they? With all the opportunities that are out there today, we know what happened in the past. We know that, okay? We know our history. So I look at the guy and I go, so they is keeping you from going to school and picking up a book and getting an education. They are the ones that made you smoke weed. Or they, see what I'm saying? They blame everything on this mysterious person that has no name for their failure or why they're not progressing in life.
Well, I don't think that they are to blame for everything, but they are the ones that own the means of production and institutions and systems.
Right.
So they're I would venture to say largely responsible for what is going on with black people in America. It's just a fact.
Right.
You hear about the young, we talked about this on Friday, the young woman, the 21-year-old Destiny Harrison. She was a hair salon owner who was murdered in Baltimore. Yep. Now, we don't know who did it, but there's a lot of conspiracy theories. There's always going to be conspiracy theories of, what happened. But, there was somebody who was young, was trying to do the right thing. Did the system do that to her? Or just was it some regular old people in the neighborhood who wasn't about nothing? So it's a lot of questions. But, Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle is a recent great example of somebody who was trying to do the right thing. And he is no longer here. And I go on record, as I always do, I believe that was a hit. I believe Destiny Harrison was a hit. And that's what they are saying because of heavy gentrification in Destiny Harris's neighborhood where her salon is. There's a lot of gentrification, so a lot of people are speculating about that. So, so when we say there's a they that's holding you back, there is really a they that's holding you back. No, I agree with that. You're talking about a smaller level. Well, what I'm saying is, so here you are, your parents, your parents have, worked hard and they're in a situation where you have all this opportunity that's in front of you and yet you don't take advantage of it. Correct. That's what I'm talking about. Right. And so, and Celine, you said, right, exactly. You said they orchestrated it. I fully believe that. And you said we allowed it. And so I agree with you to an extent. And I don't think we allowed it, but we are allowing a lot of it now. Complicit. We're complicit. We are complicit because how is it that we earn $1.3 trillion in the black community? We're talking about America, black community by ourselves. But we give almost all of that away. And as a whole, no businesses. That is unheard of. Right, as a collective. Right, as a collective to have generated that kind of wealth and have, as a whole, no businesses, right, like infrastructure. Where is the black man's liquor? Corporation, supermarket, right? Chain, right? Supermarket chain, that kind of stuff. So so that's a lot of money that we are allowing to just seep through. Not even seep. We turned on the faucet, opened up the floodgate. We got on the faucet full speed ahead and just gushing out. The other money is just gushing out, and then we try to reach and get one every once in a while. Which so that's what we are allowing that now. Right, and we could stop that so that the next generation don't have to continue to suffer the way our generation is suffering. I know, like my daughter's 27. Don't tell I told you. She's 27 and she's feeling it. She's like, she's got a degree. Not because she go out there and get a job, but it's like it's a job.
Who wants a job? I mean, it's just, I mean, you know what I mean? I want a career, not a job. I want something that I'm going to,
Right.
I could control.
Right, and so yeah, you said so we did allow it. So yes, I'm not saying we didn't have anything to do with it. We did, especially during the civil rights movement. A lot of people bought into it during the illusion of inclusion. I could just get over there across the street, where the white people all like would just be